Hi, hello everyone. I'm Paschalis Vergidis. I'm one of the infectious diseases consultants at the University Hospital of South Manchester, and today I'm going to be talking about fluconazole. The learning objectives for this talk is to understand the mechanism of action of the drug, to discuss fluconazole resistance, be familiar with the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of the medication, be aware of various indications for prophylaxis and treatment with fluconazole. We'll talk about different doses and their use in adults and kids. And we will also be talking about the adverse reactions related to its use. So fluconazole is a first-generation synthetic triazole. You can see the chemical structure on that slide, and it is structurally similar to voriconazole. I'm showing you here the structure of other azoles such as ketoconazole and itraconazole as well. So the mechanism of action of the drug, it binds the fungal cytochrome P450 dependent 14-alpha demethylase, and by binding to the enzyme, it inhibits the conversion of lanosterol to ergosterol. Ergosterol is a key component of the fungal cell membrane. So this inhibition results in accumulation of precursors that lead to arrest of the fungal cell growth. Mammalian cell demethylation is much less sensitive to fluconazole inhibition. We know that fluconazole is fungicidal against Cryptococcus when used at higher doses. So, and here again in this graph, the inhibition of lanosterol to ergosterol by the action of fluconazole, similarly to other azoles. So the spectrum of activity of this antifungal drug, it's active against yeast, Candida, and Cryptococcus species. It has also some activity against the dimorphic fungi, Blastomyces, Coccidioides, and Histoplasma, and it has activity against dermatophytes. However, it's not active against mold, such as Aspergillus. It's not active against the agents of mucormycosis. Again, here, spectrum of activity, very good activity against Candida albicans. There is some intrinsic or acquired resistance to Candida glabrata, as I will be showing you in the next slide. It's active against Cryptococcus and also against the dimorphic fungi. So, drug resistance. We know that Candida krusei is inherently resistant to fluconazole, and certain isolates of Candida glabrata may have high MICs to fluconazole. There's also acquired resistance. In the US, approximately 7% of Candida species, and higher rates of resistance for Candida glabrata. What are some of the settings where you will be encountering this azole resistance? When you don't have adequate source control, such as in intra-abdominal candidiasis and undrained abscess, for instance. When there is suboptimal treatment dose or treatment duration, mainly because of drug interactions, adverse events. In the setting of severe immunosuppression, particularly in hematologic patients with prolonged neutropenia, advanced leukemia, where the host defenses are quite impaired. So there are different mechanisms of azole resistance. Most important for Candida, and particularly Candida albicans, is the role of efflux pumps that result in decreased drug concentrations at the site of action. There could be also alterations of the target enzyme. We talked about the 14-alpha demethylase. So point mutations in the gene encoding for this enzyme lead to antifungal resistance. At the molecular level, for Candida, we are talking about this ERG11 gene encoding for the 14-alpha demethylase. So, few things about pharmacokinetics of the drug. It has an excellent oral bioavailability, over 90%. There is no effect from food or acid in the stomach. It is a drug that demonstrates linear pharmacokinetics. It penetrates well into the brain parenchyma and into the cerebrospinal fluid, so it can be used effectively for the treatment of cryptococcal meningitis. It reaches good concentrations in the eye, whether inflamed or non-inflamed eye, and it gets well into the skin tissue. It achieves high concentrations in saliva, urine, and vaginal secretions, so it can be used in mucosal candidiasis. There is limited protein binding of the drug. It's mainly excreted in the urine. Small amount of it is metabolized in the liver. And the half-life is 20 to 50 hours, so it can be dosed once a day. We are seeing in this table a comparison with the other azoles. And as you can see, fluconazole has a high solubility and high absorption with excellent bioavailability. We rarely ever measure drug concentrations for fluconazole. Again, because of the favorable pharmacokinetic profile. But this is the recommended therapeutic range, 4 to 20 micrograms per ml. So formulations, it can be given orally in the form of a tablet or capsule or as a suspension. And it can also be given parenterally, intravenously. Clinical indication for its use, targeted therapy for mucosal candidiasis, for tinea, invasive candidiasis, either candidemia or other forms of invasive candida infection, and also cryptococcal infection, including meningitis. So going over those indications and the doses that we are using for vaginal and candidiasis and candida balanitis, we would use a single dose of 150 milligrams once. If there is recurrent infection, we can use additional doses as shown in the slide. For mucosal candidiasis, oral thrush, the doses used are 50 to 100 milligrams daily for 7 to 14 days, longer if this is associated with dentures. For tinea, the dose is typically 50 milligrams, and it's been administered between 2 and 4 weeks, maximum up to 6 weeks. Going to more severe infections, invasive candidiasis, the loading dose is 800 milligrams, followed by 400 milligrams daily, and duration of treatment is for a minimum of 2 weeks. For cryptococcal infection, if we are to use fluconazole for induction, we will need to use a very high dose of 1200 milligrams daily. And this is given for 2 weeks, followed by the consolidation dose, 400 to 800 milligrams daily. And after this, we keep maintenance treatment of 200 milligrams and until immune reconstitution in the setting of HIV infection. That's where you typically see cryptococcal meningitis. We can use fluconazole preemptively in the setting of cryptococcal antigenemia, and the induction dose is 800 milligrams, followed by consolidation 400, and eventually maintenance dose of 200 milligrams daily. So we can use fluconazole for primary prophylaxis in immunocompromised patients. For high-risk individuals, such as bone marrow transplant recipients, we use a dose of 400 milligrams daily. We are going to be starting the treatment before the onset of neutropenia, preferably, and continue for 7 days after the neutrophil count has recovered. Secondary prophylaxis in the setting of cryptococcal meningitis, as mentioned previously, 200 milligrams daily. So how do we adjust the dose in the setting of renal impairment? We have to reduce by 50% for a creatinine clearance of less than 50 cc's per minute. We know that fluconazole is removed by hemofiltration, and it should be administered after hemodialysis for patients who are receiving dialysis. As I showed earlier, fluconazole is not extensively metabolized in the liver, so for that matter, dose adjustments are not really necessary, but we'll need to keep an eye for hepatotoxicity, particularly if administered in combination with other drugs. Pregnancy. Fluconazole has been associated with multiple congenital abnormalities, so it should be avoided during pregnancy. In terms of breastfeeding, it has been found to be present in the breast milk, but overall, at standard doses, it is considered that it can be used while breastfeeding. And now talking about adverse reactions. Common reactions are those from the gastrointestinal tract, nausea, abdominal discomfort, or diarrhea. It can be associated with headaches, and it can also be associated with elevated liver enzymes. So we need to monitor liver enzymes in patients who are receiving treatment with fluconazole. Other side effects: vomiting or taste disturbance, dizziness, seizures, less likely. Frank hepatitis associated with fluconazole use. We need to be aware of the potential for QT prolongation and the risk of ventricular arrhythmias, particularly when co-administered with other QT prolonging agents. And skin effects: alopecia, skin rash, and more severe reactions such as toxic epidermal necrolysis and Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Fluconazole can be associated with leukopenia or thrombocytopenia. Some other systemic reactions and unusual reactions to fluconazole, such as hypersensitivity reactions and anaphylaxis. So in summary, fluconazole inhibits the conversion of lanosterol to ergosterol, and ergosterol is the main constituent of the fungal cell membrane. It is a drug that's active against yeast, candida, and cryptococcus. It's also active against dimorphic fungi and dermatophytes. There is inherent or acquired resistance to fluconazole, and the main mechanism of resistance for candida is through increased expression of efflux pumps and point mutations in the gene encoding for 14-alpha demethylase. It's a drug with excellent oral bioavailability. It can be given in intravenous or oral formulations. And finally, you need to keep in mind that patients on fluconazole may have hepatic function abnormalities, so you need to monitor the liver enzymes while on treatment. Thank you for your attention.